The silverware trembles before the voices do. You can almost hear the tension before you see it, a soundless hum under the crystal chandeliers, like the house itself is holding its breath. The morning sunlight cuts sharp through the tall windows, scattering over the glass table where Daniel Ashford, 32 and restless, sits in his robe, scrolling through stock numbers instead of greeting anyone. Then comes the voice, soft, apologetic, almost swallowed. "I'm sorry, sir. The oatmeal took longer. The baby kicked and I—" Daniel doesn't look up. "So now the excuse is pregnancy?" he says, voice like chilled metal. "You're paid to work, not to breed on my time." The other maids freeze. You stand there, in Lila's shoes, trembling, one hand over her small belly, the other clutching a tray she can barely balance. The silence that follows is suffocating. Someone coughs, trying to fill it. Someone else leaves the room entirely. Across the table, Daniel's fiancé, Harper, lets out a low laugh. "Honestly, she's been waddling around like a penguin for weeks. It's becoming an eyesore." And that's when it happens. The slip. The old gold watch tumbles from Lila's apron pocket, clinking against the marble. The sound slices through the room like a dropped secret. Daniel's gaze snaps to it. "Where did you get that?" Lila bends, voice shaking. It was given to me years ago by—" But Daniel's already snatched it from the floor, his jaw tightening as he turns it over in his hand. You see the engraving, "To Arthur, with love, M." The same one his late mother had given his father. Given? His tone twists into mockery. "That watch belonged to my father. You stole it, didn't you?" Lila's lips part, but nothing comes. The truth hovers between them like heat, something that burns to touch. "No, sir," she finally says. He wanted me to have it." Daniel laughs, short and cruel. "My father gave his personal watch to a maid? You really expect me to believe that?" Harper's hand slides across his arm, her manicured fingers resting there like ownership. "Let her go, darling. It's pathetic to even argue with that." Lila's eyes glisten. You feel her swallow every word she could say, every name, every night of kindness she's not allowed to claim. A clock ticks somewhere, much too loud. The butler, old Mr. Hayes, clears his throat gently. "Sir, perhaps we should discuss this—" "Not another word, Hayes," Daniel snaps. "I want her out by sundown. She's a burden to this house." Lila flinches. "Sir, please, my next checkup is tomorrow. Just let me finish." "No." He stands, slamming the watch onto the table so hard it rings like a warning. "I won't have thieves or freeloaders under my roof." The tray slips from her hands, oatmeal splattering over the marble, the sound oddly small after all that shouting. For a moment, everyone just stares at it. Oats, milk, and shame in a puddle on a table worth more than her yearly pay. Then Lila does something that no one expects. She kneels, not to beg, but to clean. Quietly, gracefully, like she's done it her whole life. Even Daniel hesitates, just for a second, as her trembling fingers pick up the shattered bowl. There's a steadiness to her that unsettles him, something that doesn't match the image he's built of her. Harper breaks the silence first. "God, she's still on the floor! Can't someone take her out already?" But Mr. Hayes moves before anyone else. He stoops beside Lila, helping her with the broken pieces. His eyes, old and tired, flick to Daniel's wrist, to the mark where his father once wore that same watch daily. He says nothing, but his silence feels like disapproval. Outside, the morning hum of lawnmowers and distant traffic goes on as if nothing happened. Inside, the air grows heavier, the kind that clings to memory. Daniel storms off, muttering something about standards and discipline. Harper follows, heels clicking sharply against marble. And there she is, Lila, alone now, still kneeling by the mess. Her reflection swims faintly in the polished floor. She takes a slow breath and whispers under it, almost to herself. You promised this would never happen again. We don't yet know who she's talking to. Not yet. But the way her hand grazes the pocket where the watch was, and the single tear that drops onto the floor, makes you wonder. Behind her, Mr. Hayes watches quietly, his lips tightening, before he says in a low, nearly broken voice, "That watch wasn't stolen, was it?" Lila shakes her head, eyes fixed on the sunlight spilling over the window. "No, Mr. Hayes," she says. "It was a gift, and one day they'll know why." He nods slowly, almost like he already does. The scene fades on that stillness, the kind of silence that carries questions instead of answers. Because in that house, every shadow seems to whisper the same thing. Nothing here is what it looks like. Afternoons in the Ashford mansion have a strange way of sounding rich, quiet, but never peaceful. The air hums with money, not life, the faint buzz of imported light fixtures, the clink of iced whiskey in a crystal glass, the muffled whispers that live beneath every polished surface. You can hear them now. The servants' voices slipping through the hallway like cautious wind. They say she had his watch. Not his watch. Mr. Arthur's watch. You mean the old man? The one who... Shh. Not here. You don't see their faces, but you can feel the tremor in their words. The gossip crawls under doors, up staircases, across linen carts and silver trays. And at the top of the stairs, Daniel hears every syllable. He's in his father's old office, the only room in the house that still smells faintly of tobacco and oak polish. His jaw flexes as he listens. Loyalty, he mutters. A dying art. He pours himself another drink. The amber catches the afternoon light, the same color as his father's eyes. Though Daniel never inherited the warmth, downstairs, Harper glides through the corridor like a perfume ad, all heels, diamonds, and dangerous curiosity. "You really should fire them all," she tells Daniel when she enters, eyes gleaming. The help talk too much. Daniel doesn't respond. He's staring at an old photograph on the desk, his father shaking hands with a senator, smiling the same confident smile that once ruled this house. But behind that frame lies another photo, face down, one he hasn't looked at in years. "You ever wonder," Harper teases, leaning against the desk, "why your father was always so charitable with the staff?" He exhales through his nose, annoyed. "Don't start. Oh, come on. Everyone knows he had his favorites." Daniel's jaw tightens. He remembers it, how his father used to walk the gardens at dusk, talking softly with one particular maid. Back then, Daniel thought it was harmless. Now the thought twists inside him like a knife he didn't know he was carrying. "She stole from me," he says instead. "She's lucky I didn't call the police." Harper twirls her diamond ring idly. "Funny thing about luck, darling. It tends to change hands." He looks up sharply. "Meaning?" She smiles, not answering, and changes the subject. "The party's still on for tomorrow, right? The board, your investors, my father. They're all expecting an announcement. Don't let that maid's drama ruin your big day." He nods automatically, but the words barely reach him. His eyes flick once more to that photograph, and for a split second he thinks he sees something behind his father's grin. Guilt? Regret? It's hard to tell, but it lingers. Downstairs, Lila folds linens with mechanical precision. Her belly moves slightly beneath the loose uniform, a small life turning. She hums under her breath a lullaby too old to place. When Mr. Hayes enters, she doesn't look up. "I'll be gone by sundown," she says softly. "Don't worry," the old man sighs. "You shouldn't have come back here, Lila. You knew it would stir ghosts." "I didn't come for ghosts," she replies, tying the last sheet. "I came for closure." He studies her face, lined not by age but exhaustion. "You could have sold that watch. You didn't have to keep it all these years." Her eyes lift, calm but heavy. "It wasn't mine to sell." He nods, understanding more than he says. Then, in a whisper almost too faint to hear, "They never told Daniel, did they?" Lila's fingers pause mid-fold. "No," she murmurs. "And it's not my place, too." From upstairs, a faint echo, a slammed door, followed by the low rumble of Daniel's anger spilling into another room. You can feel it shake the walls. By evening, the mansion dims into its golden hour quiet. Harper's voice drifts through the hallway like smoke, scolding someone about table settings. Lila stands in the kitchen doorway, watching the light fade through the tall windows. She presses a hand to her belly. Breathing through the ache in her back, the baby kicks again. "You're stronger than they know," she whispers. There's a small picture tucked inside her apron pocket. The ultrasound from last month, edges folded from use. On the back, a faint pencil note, "For his future." She smiles, though her eyes don't. Outside, the gardeners pack up for the night. Inside, the watch she once held now sits on Daniel's nightstand, its ticking barely audible, as if it's holding onto a secret it's not ready to tell. Later, when Harper comes to check on him, Daniel's staring at that watch again. The faint scratches, the worn strap, the inscription that feels suddenly heavier. "You're obsessing," Harper teases lightly, climbing onto the bed beside him. It's just an old trinket, but Daniel doesn't answer. He's thinking of Lila's face when he accused her, that look of quiet hurt that didn't belong to a thief. He hates that it still bothers him. As he turns off the lamp, his reflection catches in the window. His father's reflection, really. For a moment, he almost expects to hear the old man's voice say something, but it's only the ticking, tick, tick. And somewhere in the servants' quarters, Lila whispers a prayer she's whispered every night for years, this time with a trembling voice. "Please, Arthur, just let him know the truth before it's too late." The mansion sighs as if it understands, its shadows settling deeper around her. But suspense has a strange way of waiting, quietly, patiently, until morning brings the next storm. The morning begins like nothing happened. Sunlight spilling over the marble floors, coffee steaming, and lies served warm with breakfast. Harper hums at the dining table, flipping through a bridal magazine. Daniel's sitting beside her, expression distant, scrolling through an email that he's not really reading. Then Lila walks in, her steps slower than usual. Her uniform's crisp, but her face tells you she hasn't slept. She places a tray down with trembling hands. Daniel doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. The tension stretches between them like an invisible wire. "I thought I told you to leave," he says flatly. "You did, sir." Lila's voice is small but steady. "I only asked for one more day. I have a medical appointment at noon for the baby. Then I'll be gone." Harper snorts, not looking up from her glossy pages. "A medical appointment, please." Probably a pity visit to get another excuse to stay. Daniel sips his coffee, pretending indifference. But you can see it. That flicker in his eyes when Lila's hand moves instinctively to her belly. "I'll allow it," he says finally, the words sharp-edged with pride. "But after that, you're done here. No severance, no reference. Understood?" Lila nods once. "Understood." She turns to leave, but Harper isn't done. She tilts her head with that poisonous curiosity that people wear when they think they're above someone else. "Tell me something," she says, smiling thinly. "Do you even know who the father is? Or was it one of the gardeners? You lot always have. Stories, the air stills." Lila's fingers tighten on the tray. Daniel's jaw shifts, but he says nothing. Maybe because deep down a part of him wants to hear the answer too. Lila looks at Harper for a long moment. Not angry, just tired. "Yes," she says softly. "I know exactly who the father is." Something in her tone makes Harper falter, but Lila walks away before anyone can ask. Later that morning, Lila stands outside the local clinic, the same one she's visited for months. The receptionist gives her a tired smile, the kind reserved for familiar faces carrying quiet burdens. Inside the waiting area, she sits across from a poster that reads, "Prenatal care, every life deserves a chance." She rubs her stomach absently, eyes flicking toward the clock. You can almost feel the weight of that ticking, the same rhythm as Arthur Ashford's old watch upstairs. When the doctor appears, his face is kind but worried. "Lila," he says gently, "you're here alone again?" She nods. "Always," he sighs. "You should have someone with you." "Stress isn't good for—" "I'll be fine," she interrupts softly. "I just want to know everything's okay." The doctor hesitates, then gestures for her to follow him. "I'll see you in room 3. But as they walk past the nurse's station, you notice something strange. A woman in expensive sunglasses sitting in the corner, pretending to scroll her phone. Harper. She lowers her glasses slightly, watching Lila disappear down the hall. A smile curls at her lips, quiet and cruel. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Daniel stands on the balcony, staring out over the estate. He's been thinking too much. About the watch, about his father's funeral, about that faint look on Lila's face when she mentioned the baby. Mr. Hayes approaches from behind, moving carefully. "Sir," he says. "About Miss Lila. Might I speak freely?" Daniel doesn't turn. "You're about to anyway." "Your father," Hayes says, choosing his words like stepping stones. He cared deeply for the staff. "Especially Lila. There were things he never explained, sir, but—" Daniel cuts him off with a sharp wave. "Enough! You people are obsessed with ghosts." "Not ghosts," Hayes murmurs. "Regrets." Daniel turns finally, eyes narrowing. "Are you implying something?" The butler meets his gaze steadily. "Only that your father trusted her. Perhaps more than he trusted most." For a moment, neither speaks. Then Daniel's phone buzzes. A message from Harper, at the clinic. "You'll thank me later." He frowns, confused, then curses under his breath. At the clinic, Harper's still pretending to scroll when she hears the doctor's voice from the next room. "We'll do the ultrasound now. Just relax." The rhythmic pulse of the machine fills the quiet, that steady whoosh-whoosh of tiny life. Harper leans closer to the door, straining to listen. Then comes the doctor's puzzled murmur. "That's unusual," Lila tenses. "What is it?" The doctor adjusts the monitor. "Nothing alarming, I'm just—" "Interesting. The bone structure pattern, the resemblance." "Resemblance?" Lila repeats, brow furrowing. He nods slowly. "There's a strong genetic feature here, something I've seen before. In older files." He hesitates. "You said the father wasn't in the picture?" Her throat tightens. "No, doctor, he's gone." Harper's eyes widen from behind the door, a smile ghosting across her lips. She takes out her phone, ready to capture something, anything to use later. Then the doctor lowers his voice. "All right, we're done for today. I'll print your results." As Harper retreats, satisfied, she bumps into someone rounding the corner. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" he snaps. She blinks innocently. "Just supporting your staff." "She's in there, isn't she?" Daniel's expression darkens. "You followed her?" "Oh, don't be dramatic," Harper says. "I'm just making sure your charity cases don't cause more scandal." But Daniel isn't listening anymore. Through the half-open door, he sees Lila sitting on the bed, holding a printout, her face pale, her hand trembling slightly as she looks at it. The doctor places a second envelope on the counter. "I'll file this under the patient record," he says. "You can pick it up next week." Lila nods, but her eyes linger on that sealed envelope as he leaves. She doesn't know that Harper noticed it. She doesn't know that Harper's already smiling, planning. And she definitely doesn't know that when Daniel's gaze catches hers through the door crack, he'll see something he can't explain, a flash of pain, of history, and of truth that refuses to stay buried. As the doctor turns off the monitor, the faint echo of the baby's heartbeat still hangs in the room, rhythmic, haunting, and familiar. It sounds, for just a second, like the ticking of a watch. It begins with the sound of rain against the mansion roof, slow, steady, like memory tapping on glass. You're no longer in the present. The light shifts, the colors dull. We're sliding backward. Years before the insult, before the scandal, before the watch ever changed hands. Back when Lila first arrived, she was 19, rail-thin and carrying a letter of recommendation from a small parish home for women. The letter said she was trustworthy, hard-working, and discreet, the three traits Arthur Ashford valued more than bloodline itself. He hired her on the spot. In those early days, the Ashford mansion was brighter. You can almost smell the difference: fresh-cut roses instead of silence, laughter instead of sharp orders. Arthur still walked the halls then, cane in hand, the kind of man who greeted the staff by name. "Lila, isn't it?" he said the first morning, smiling faintly. "You remind me of someone I once knew." She blushed, unsure whether to thank him or apologize. No need to look so frightened. He chuckled. "Fear is useful in business, not in service. Just do your work with pride." He left her with that sentence, one that would echo for years, and for a while, everything was simple. Lila worked quietly, efficiently. She scrubbed marble floors that gleamed like mirrors, polished silver that reflected faces she could never be part of. The other maids liked her. The butler respected her. But rumors travel faster than truth in rich houses. They whispered that Mr. Ashford spent more time in the servants' wing than in his office. That sometimes, late at night, the lights under his study door stayed on, 2 silhouettes instead of 1. One winter evening, Daniel came home early from college. He walked into his father's study unannounced and froze. His father sat behind the desk reading a letter. Across from him, Lila stood stiffly, holding a steaming cup of tea. Arthur looked up first, smiling. "Son, you're back early." Daniel nodded, his eyes darting between them. "Yeah, exams finished sooner than expected." "Good, good," his father said warmly. "You remember Lila?" He did. She'd been around barely 6 months, but even then, her calm presence made her stand out. "Sure," he said curtly, pretending not to notice how quickly she lowered her eyes. Arthur leaned back in his chair, studying his son. "You've grown into quite the man. You'll run this place someday." Lila's expression shifted slightly, pride mixed with something else. Maybe sadness. When she turned to leave, Arthur said something under his breath, too low for Daniel to catch. But she smiled in response, a small, grateful curve of the lips that haunted Daniel for weeks. A year later, the whispers grew louder. Arthur started spending more time away from the mansion, claiming business trips. He sent letters to the staff from his travels, short, kind notes with his usual signature. But one letter addressed to Lila came back unopened, the words, "Return to sender," stamped across the front. When she opened it in secret, her hands shook. Inside were only 4 words, written in Arthur's careful handwriting. "Keep it safe. Always." And tucked beneath the note, the gold watch. That night, Lila sat on her narrow bed, turning it over and over in her hands. The engraving caught the light. "To Arthur with love. M." She knew who M was, the late Mrs. Ashford, gone 5 years now. She'd seen her portrait in the hall. It felt wrong to keep it, but she also knew she couldn't return it. Not after that look in Arthur's eyes, that tired sadness that only people with unspoken regrets carry. The next morning, he was gone again. Months later, Daniel received a call at college. His father had collapsed during a meeting, a heart attack. By the time Daniel reached the hospital, it was too late. At the funeral, Lila stood at the back, her face veiled with quiet composure. Daniel didn't even notice her, or maybe he did and chose not to. The next day, she disappeared without saying goodbye. No one mentioned her name again. Not until she returned years later with a suitcase, a rounded belly, and that same watch tucked inside her pocket. The rain fades. We're back in the present now. Lila sits on the edge of her narrow bed in the servants' quarters, the ultrasound printout resting on her lap. She's been staring at it for hours. The baby's shape, the outline, it's clearer than ever. And the resemblance the doctor mentioned? She sees it now, too. She reaches for the watch, winding it slowly, the gears clicking softly. It's still working. A knock on the door breaks her trance. Mr. Hayes steps inside. "You missed dinner," he says quietly. "I wasn't hungry." He studies her face. "You saw him again today, didn't you?" "Mr. Daniel," Lila nods faintly. "He hates me more than ever." "Because he doesn't know the truth," Hayes replies. "Or maybe because he suspects it." She looks up sharply. He can't know. Not yet, the old man sighs. Secrets have a way of choosing their own time, child. Especially in this house. Lila smiles sadly, brushing her thumb over the ultrasound. Then I hope they wait just a little longer. Hayes nods, heading for the door. Before leaving, he turns and adds softly, Your son will be proud one day of all of this. Maybe, she says, if I can protect him from their name. As the door closes, the watch ticks louder. You can almost hear Arthur's voice inside it, a ghost trapped in time, whispering a promise that was never meant to be broken. Outside, thunder rumbles, distant but coming closer, and upstairs, in his father's old office, Daniel dreams of that same watch, only in his dream. It's ticking inside a baby's heartbeat. The hospital hums with quiet unease. White walls, echoing footsteps, and the faint cry of newborns down the corridor. Lila walks in, clutching the referral letter the mansion's family doctor had arranged. It's supposed to be a simple checkup, the last before she leaves the Ashfords' estate for good. She signs in with trembling fingers. The nurse glances up, polite but curious. Name? Lila Monroe, she says softly. The nurse types it in, then hesitates. Strange. Your file isn't here. The system says it was transferred. Transferred? Lila frowns. By who? The nurse checks the computer again. Dr. Faulkner's name is on the order. He's the Ashford's private physician, right? Lila nods slowly. The unease in her stomach deepens. Yes, he's the family doctor. Well, don't worry. The doctor on duty will still see you, the nurse says kindly. You'll just need to fill out a few things again. Lila forces a smile, signing new forms. But her mind is racing. Why would Dr. Faulkner move her file, and without telling her? Back at the mansion, Daniel sits in his late father's office, scrolling through emails. His fiancée, Veronica, lounges on the leather couch, flipping through bridal magazines. You know, she says with a smirk, the staff's been gossiping again, about that maid. Daniel doesn't look up. Which one? The pregnant one. The one you said you're firing. Lila, he mutters. Yes, she's leaving tonight. Good, Veronica says, closing the magazine. You should have let her go the moment you saw her hiding that watch. Honestly, the audacity, wearing your father's things like she owned them. Daniel's jaw tightens. She said it was a gift. Veronica laughs. From who? Your father? Please. He wasn't sentimental with staff. Daniel's eyes flicker toward the portrait above the fireplace, his father standing proudly, that same gold watch gleaming on his wrist. Something about the memory twists inside him. She was crying when I saw her this morning, Veronica continues, sensing his silence. Told the old butler she's going to the hospital. Probably trying to milk sympathy before she leaves. Daniel exhales. It's none of your concern. Oh, but it is, she says sweetly, standing to wrap her arms around his shoulders. We're getting married soon. I don't want scandals attached to our name, especially not from some maid who can't even say who her child's father is. Daniel pushes her hands away. Drop it, Veronica. Her eyes flash with irritation. You're defending her now? I'm saying, he stops. Because even as he tries to finish, something deep down refuses to form the words. Back at the clinic, the ultrasound room is dimly lit, the hum of machines filling the silence. The doctor, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and steady hands, applies the gel to Lila's stomach. Relax, Miss Monroe, he says gently. Let's take a look at your little one. The screen flickers to life. A soft, rhythmic thump fills the room. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Lila's eyes water. That's him? The doctor smiles. That's your baby's heartbeat. Strong one, too. As he moves the probe, he frowns slightly. Lila tenses. Is something wrong? No, nothing wrong, he says quickly. Just interesting. He zooms in. The bone structure, the chin, the cheekbones. Very distinct. She looks up, confused. What do you mean? He hesitates, studying her face, then the screen again. Nothing. Just reminds me of someone. Her pulse quickens. Someone? The doctor leans back, clicking a few buttons. I'll print these for you. He stands, But instead of walking to the printer, he steps to the door and peers into the hallway. His expression hardens. "Excuse me one moment." When he returns, he's holding a sealed envelope, her name handwritten across it. "What's that?" she asks. "Something you'll need soon," he says quietly. "For your son's future. And for protection." Her brow furrows. "Protection from what?" "Not what," he says. "Who?" Before she can respond, the nurse returns with the printouts, but one is missing. The key ultrasound image, the one the doctor had zoomed in on, showing the baby's face. Gone. He quickly tucks the sealed envelope into her handbag. "Keep this safe. Don't show anyone until I tell you." "Doctor, please, what's happening?" He gives her a small, sad smile. "Some truths have waited years to be born, Lila. Yours is almost ready." Outside the hospital, Veronica sits in her car, tapping her manicured nails on the steering wheel. Through the glass doors, she sees Lila emerging, clutching her handbag protectively. She smirks. So that's the little maid's big secret. Veronica picks up her phone and dials Dr. Faulkner. "Hi, doctor. It's Veronica Ashford. Just making sure you took care of that file I mentioned?" A pause on the other end. "Yes, Miss Ashford," he says reluctantly. "It's handled." "Perfect." Her tone drips with satisfaction. "Wouldn't want my future husband's name attached to complications." She hangs up and drives off, smiling, unaware that the real file isn't missing at all. It's in the sealed envelope the doctor just gave Lila, with one additional page clipped inside, a blood test labeled Paternity Analysis. Subject: Arthur Ashford, deceased. The result line is faint but visible. Positive, 99.7%. The Ashford Tower rises over downtown like a monument to inherited arrogance. Glass, steel, and a name carved in silver letters 30 stories high. Inside, the boardroom glows under soft lighting, filled with polished shoes, camera flashes, and the hum of corporate flattery. "Ladies and gentlemen," Daniel begins, standing at the head of the table, "today isn't just about expansion. It's about legacy, my father's and the next generation's." The crowd applauds politely. Veronica, flawless in white satin, beams beside him. Her engagement ring catches the light like a signal flare. Behind them, an oversized screen displays Ashford Industries, plus Aurum Group, strategic merger announcement. It's supposed to be the proudest day of Daniel's life. Instead, he keeps glancing toward the glass door, as if expecting someone to walk in and stop the show. Lila stands outside the tower lobby, one hand resting protectively over her stomach, the other clutching the sealed envelope. The revolving doors spin endlessly, reflecting her face over and over, fractured, hesitant. She shouldn't be here. The doctor's warning echoes in her mind. Some truths have waited years to be born. But after what she discovered that morning, after reading the paper hidden in that envelope, she couldn't stay silent. The truth didn't just concern her child. It changed everything Daniel thought he knew about his family. Inside, a public relations manager whispers into Daniel's ear. "Sir, the press wants you both by the podium for the Q&A. Big headline moment." Daniel forces a smile. "Of course." He steps forward. Cameras flash. Veronica's voice glides through the microphone like silk. "When Daniel and I marry next spring, we'll continue his father's vision, a world built on loyalty, family, and trust." That last word, trust, lands heavy. Daniel's jaw tightens. He catches sight of his reflection in the glass behind the reporters and sees something that unsettles him, his own uncertainty staring back. The room buzzes with polite laughter and champagne toasts. The air smells of money and nerves, then the elevator dings. A hush ripples through the hall. Lila steps out, small and uninvited, clutching an envelope that looks absurdly fragile against the marble floor and security guards. "Sir, she's not on the guest list," the guard murmurs. Daniel freezes. "It's fine." "Let her speak." The reporters turn, intrigued. Veronica's smile doesn't waver, but her hand clenches the stem of her glass hard enough to crack it. Lila swallows. Her voice trembles but doesn't break. "I wouldn't have come if it wasn't important." Daniel nods once, expression unreadable. Say what you came to say. Lila steps forward. You told me I was a burden. That my child didn't belong here. She opens the envelope slowly. But you were wrong. This isn't about me. She lays the ultrasound image on the table. The room tilts with whispers. Veronica snorts. Really? You're crashing a business conference with baby pictures? Lila looks at her, and the calm in her eyes is sharper than anger. This isn't just a baby. It's your fiancé's grandfather's bloodline continuing, in a way none of you expected. The air goes still. Daniel frowns. What are you talking about? Lila slides another page forward. A paternity test. Dr. Faulkner ordered it before your father passed. He knew. And he left this for me. Daniel takes the paper, scanning it. His face drains of color. Veronica leans in. Daniel, don't. She's lying. She forged that! But he's not listening. His father's name, Arthur Ashford, is printed in bold letters. Below it, probability of biological relation, 99.7%. Lila's voice softens. Your father wasn't just kind to me. He protected me. When he learned I was expecting, he didn't shame me. He told me to be proud, because he knew. The child I carry is his grandchild. The boardroom erupts. Voices, cameras, disbelief. The PR manager tries to cut the feed, but it's too late. The live stream's already been shared. Veronica turns pale, stepping back. You're insane, Daniel. Tell them this is a scam. Daniel looks at her, eyes glassy. You knew about the missing files, didn't you? You had Faulkner transfer them. What? No! She stammers, but the tremor in her voice betrays her. He throws the papers down. You tried to erase evidence of my father's affair, his child, to protect a merger. Daniel, listen. This doesn't change anything. We can fix, but Daniel cuts her off. It changes everything. Lila doesn't gloat. She just stands there, trembling. He was ashamed to tell you, Daniel. He wanted to, but he died before he could. I wasn't his secret. I was his promise, that what he built wouldn't end with greed. Her words land heavier than any accusation. The chairman of Aurum Group leans forward, clearing his throat awkwardly. Perhaps this isn't the right moment for a merger discussion. Daniel barely hears him. He's staring at the ultrasound photo again, the tiny outline of a face. His father's chin. His own eyes. For the first time in years, Daniel feels something deeper than anger, something like shame. Maybe even clarity. The press begins shouting questions. Mr. Ashford, is the company's future in question? Who will inherit the estate now? Is this woman telling the truth? Daniel doesn't answer. He looks at Lila, his voice quiet. I need to see the doctor who gave you this. She nods. He's waiting for you. As she turns to leave, Veronica grabs her arm. You think this makes you special? He'll never... Lila meets her glare calmly. I'm not here to be chosen. I'm here because truth doesn't need permission. Security steps between them. Veronica's voice fades under the click of cameras. Daniel follows Lila out. The automatic doors close behind them, cutting the noise of the scandal like a blade. Outside, under the afternoon sun, Daniel exhales shakily. For the first time, he feels the weight of everything his father left unfinished. Lila, he says, barely above a whisper. If what you said is true, then my child... Our child, she corrects softly, hand resting on her stomach. And your father's legacy. Behind them, the massive Ashford Industries sign flickers, one light shorting out, as if the empire itself is trembling. The mystery isn't over. It's just beginning. Rain lashes against the windshield as Daniel's car pulls into the secluded driveway of Dr. Faulkner's country home. The storm outside mirrors the chaos brewing inside him. Lila sits beside him in silence, her hands folded over the envelope now creased from being held too tightly. For a long moment, neither of them moves. The only sound is the rhythmic drumming of rain and the faint hum of the car's engine. Daniel finally exhales, staring through the glass. I grew up believing my father was a saint. He built the company, the charities, everything people still praise him for. But this, he shakes his head. He had a whole other life I never knew about. Lila's gaze softens. He didn't want to hide you, Daniel. He wanted to protect you from the mess his heart made. He turns to her, frustration creeping in. You talk like you knew him better than I did. I didn't, she admits. But I listened. Sometimes that's more than love. It's understanding. Her words linger between them, quiet but sharp. Before he can respond, the porch light flickers on. The front door opens, revealing Dr. Faulkner, gray-haired, raincoat already soaked, a look of resignation carved into his face. Inside, the doctor ushers them to the fire. The warmth fills the small cabin, smelling faintly of cedar and antiseptic. I figured you'd come, he says, pouring tea. The moment I saw the news flash across my phone, I knew this day had arrived. Daniel sits stiffly. You knew about her pregnancy? You hid it. Why? Faulkner sighs. Because your father asked me to. Lila looks up. He wanted me protected. Yes, the doctor says quietly. Arthur was a complicated man. He made mistakes, but he wanted to fix them the only way he knew how, through that child. Daniel's jaw clenches. You think an illegitimate grandchild fixes anything? Faulkner's gaze hardens. Watch your words, son. That illegitimate grandchild is carrying more of your father's heart than his entire boardroom combined. A crack of thunder punctuates the silence. Daniel looks down, shame flickering across his features. The doctor reaches into a drawer and pulls out a red folder, identical to the one Veronica once saw in the hospital. Its seal remains unbroken. I was supposed to give this to you after the funeral, Faulkner says, placing it on the table. But the company vultures got there first. They wanted your father's estate clean, no controversy. Daniel hesitates, staring at the seal. Arthur M. Ashford, private correspondence. Inside are handwritten pages, slightly yellowed. The first begins with, my son. If you're reading this, then I didn't have the courage to tell you in life what I should have. There are things a man can build, towers, companies, reputations, but none of them matter if he loses his soul on the way. Daniel's eyes trace the lines, his breath uneven. I met Lila's mother 25 years ago. She worked here as a maid. She reminded me what decency felt like when I'd forgotten. After she passed, I promised to take care of her daughter as if she were my own. I failed. Until now, Lila's hand covers her mouth. He never told me that. Daniel continues reading, his voice trembling. If you want to know who deserves the Ashford name, don't look at bloodlines. Look at who carries compassion when the world gives them none. The room goes silent. Then Faulkner adds quietly, your father had cancer. He knew time was short. That's why he left his personal will, the one your lawyers never saw. He opens the second envelope. Inside, a notarized letter, dated 2 months before Arthur's death. Daniel reads it aloud. I hereby acknowledge that my estate's charitable foundation and a portion of Ashford Industries' shares shall be entrusted to Lila Monroe as guardian of my unborn grandchild until the child reaches legal age. He stops mid-sentence. This gives her control of 15% of the company. Faulkner nods. That's right. Enough to have a voice, not enough to destroy you. Arthur wanted balance, not revenge. Lila sits frozen. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, the doctor says gently. That's why you deserve it. Daniel runs a hand through his hair, pacing. You realize what this means? The board will revolt. Veronica's father, he'll sue. The press will... Faulkner cuts in. Let them. The truth is already out. What matters is how you choose to handle it now. The fire crackles, filling the heavy pause that follows. Finally, Daniel looks at Lila. His voice softens. You could have used this against me. Instead, you brought it to me. I wasn't raised to humiliate people, she says, only to remind them who they are. Something shifts in him, a quiet breaking of pride. He nods slowly. Then help me make this right. Not just for you, for him. Lila studies him, unsure whether to trust this new humility. You mean that? I do, he says. If my father believed in you, I owe it to him, and that child, to start believing too. The storm outside begins to ease, rain softening into mist. Faulkner leans back, eyes weary but satisfied. Arthur used to say every truth has 2 births, The one in secret and the one in daylight. Tonight, it's finally daylight. Lila smiles faintly. Then maybe it's time to stop hiding. Daniel looks out the window, where dawn is barely breaking through the gray. Tomorrow, I'll call an emergency board meeting. We'll tell them everything. Faulkner nods. Good. Let the truth rebuild what arrogance destroyed. As they prepare to leave, Daniel pauses at the doorway. He turns to the doctor. Why did you keep helping us? You could have stayed out of this. Faulkner smiles sadly. Because once I watched your father make the wrong choice. I wasn't about to let his son do the same. Daniel nods, quietly humbled, and steps into the cool morning air. Lila follows, clutching her coat around her, rain turning her curls to soft waves. In the distance, the first sunrise paints the sky gold, the same color as Arthur's watch, the one Lila still keeps in her pocket. She glances at Daniel. Do you really think the board will listen? He looks at her, eyes steady for the first time. They'll listen. This time, the truth has an air. Somewhere in the house behind them, the fire pops, a faint echo of the man whose secrets, at last, found light. The next morning, the sky over Manhattan is washed pale silver, that eerie calm that hangs before a reckoning. News vans are already lined outside Ashford Tower. Microphones flash like bayonets, waiting for the man who, just 24 hours ago, embodied untouchable power. Now Daniel walks through the lobby with Lila at his side. She wears no makeup, just quiet strength. Her hand rests lightly on her belly. Every step she takes draws whispers from the staff, half awe, half confusion. At the reception desk, the secretary hesitates. Mr. Ashford, the board's already in session. And miss, she's with me, Daniel says. His voice is calm, firm, without the arrogance that used to lace every word. The secretary nods, startled, and buzzes them in. Inside the boardroom, the tension is electric. 12 executives in tailored suits, their expressions carved in stone. Veronica sits at the end of the table, next to her father, Richard Duval, the Orem Group chairman. His face looks like weathered steel. When Daniel enters, the room stiffens. Cameras roll. Journalists have been allowed in for transparency. Or spectacle. Daniel, Duval begins coldly. Before you say anything, understand this. What you did yesterday jeopardized a $500 million merger. You've turned a private embarrassment into a public scandal. Daniel places a folder on the table. Yesterday wasn't a scandal. It was a confession overdue by a generation. Duval's eyes narrow. You think moral speeches will keep investors? No, Daniel says. But honesty might. He turns to the reporters. Before we begin, I want to make something clear. What Miss Monroe revealed yesterday isn't a scheme or accusation. It's a truth my father intended for this company to face, even if I wasn't ready to. Veronica scoffs. Oh, spare us the redemption arc. You're trying to look noble after your maid trapped you with a fake claim. Lila doesn't flinch. If I wanted to trap anyone, she says softly, I wouldn't have walked into this room alone, the journalists murmur. Daniel opens the folder, the same red one from Dr. Faulkner's home, and slides out his father's handwritten letter. This is Arthur Ashford's will, authenticated this morning by legal counsel. It grants guardianship and company shares to Lila Monroe, the mother of his grandchild. The document was suppressed by individuals acting in their own interest. He lets that hang in the air before glancing toward Veronica. She looks away. Duval's tone sharpens. Do you have any idea what this means for the merger? Yes, Daniel replies. It means it's over. Ashford Industries won't be absorbed into Orem. We'll restructure under new leadership, honoring my father's original mission. Community, equality, and transparency. A collective gasp ripples across the table. Veronica rises, voice trembling with outrage. You're throwing away everything for her. Daniel looks at her steadily. I'm saving everything from what you became. You can't just rewrite your father's empire for a housemaid. He smiles faintly. Funny. That's exactly what my father did when he hired one. The room goes silent. Lila speaks up, her voice clear but humble. Mr. Duval, I'm not here to ruin anyone's legacy. I'm here because your company's name stands on the backs of people like me. People who cleaned the floors while others took credit for their shine. That baby inside me isn't asking for wealth, just truth, a journalist whispers audibly. That line'll headline tomorrow. Veronica glares. Oh, please, the sympathy act, but Duval interrupts her, surprisingly quiet now. Daniel, if you end this merger, Orem will pull its contracts. You'll lose almost half your investors. Daniel nods. Then we'll build new ones. Ones that don't rely on burying the truth. Duval studies him for a long moment, then exhales through his nose. Your father was a fool. Maybe, Daniel replies. But at least he learned what kind of fool he was before the end. A security guard walks in, handing Daniel a phone. Sir, external media line. They're live. He takes it, presses speakerphone. A woman's voice fills the room. Mr. Ashford, this is CNN. Is it true you've confirmed paternity of Miss Monroe's child and transferred shares to her name? Daniel looks straight into the cameras. It's true, and I'd rather be known as a man who accepted truth late than one who buried it forever. The boardroom falls completely silent. Even the hum of the air conditioner seems to fade. Lila glances at him, not admiration, but recognition. The son of a man who finally learned how to be decent. Outside, reporters crowd the lobby. Security holds them back as Daniel and Lila emerge from the elevator. Mr. Ashford, Miss Monroe, are you two together now? Is this child the new heir? Will the company survive? Lila pauses, turning toward the flashing lights. The company's not what needs to survive, she says gently. It's the people inside it. Daniel places a hand on her shoulder, not as possession, but as solidarity. We'll release a statement soon, he says, guiding her through the crowd. A journalist shouts after them. Do you regret it, Mr. Ashford? He stops, looks back. Only the years I spent believing silence was strength. Then he keeps walking. Hours later, the building's massive glass facade reflects the setting sun. Workers inside whisper about new policies, maternity benefits, staff scholarships, equal pay. In the CEO's office, Daniel stands alone, staring at his father's portrait. The man's painted eyes seem less certain now. You were right, he murmurs. Legacy isn't the name they remember. It's the change they feel. Behind him, the door opens. Lila enters quietly, holding the gold watch, the one his father gave her. She places it on the desk. He wanted you to have it. Daniel runs his thumb over the inscription. For the one who carries time forward. A faint smile breaks across his face. Then I guess that's not me anymore. Lila tilts her head. You sure? He nods toward her belly. Pretty sure time's got a new keeper. For the first time in days, laughter breaks through the tension, soft, genuine. That night, the news cycle spins with frenzy. Headline, Ashford heir acknowledges Maid's child, company restructures amid scandal. But beneath the noise, something quieter begins. Employees smiling at seeing fair raises, cleaners walking home a little taller. Whispers of a legacy reborn not from wealth, but from conscience. Weeks later, Lila visits the small park Arthur used to walk through on weekends. Daniel joins her, in casual clothes this time, not a CEO, but a man learning humility. She watches their reflection ripple in the pond. People still think I trapped you, he shrugs. Let them. The truth doesn't shout. It lasts, she smiles. So what happens now? He looks at her, eyes softened. Now, we start the slow work of redemption. The camera lingers as a breeze ripples the water, distorting their reflection into one, the past and the future, overlapping, neither erased. Both transformed. They say every lie is like a seed buried in silence, but so is every truth. The only difference is which one grows first. The screen fades to black as Lila's voice continues softly, and when it finally breaks the soil, it doesn't ask permission. It just reaches for the light. In a world obsessed with appearances, the Ashford scandal became something rare, not just a story of downfall, but of correction. Daniel's company rebuilt slower but stronger, rooted in transparency. The foundation Arthur once dreamed of now funded single mothers, including those once dismissed as burdens. Veronica's name faded from headlines, replaced by Lila's, not as a scandal, but as a symbol. She never moved back into the mansion. Instead, she ran the foundation's outreach wing from a modest office where people's voices mattered more than board votes. Daniel visited often, never for spectacle, just to listen. Sometimes they spoke of Arthur, sometimes of the future, and sometimes they didn't speak at all, because redemption, like truth, doesn't always announce itself. It just lives differently, quietly, persistently, and somewhere in that quiet, the heartbeat that once echoed through an ultrasound room now echoed through something larger, a world learning that dignity, once buried, can't be erased. If this story reminded you that truth doesn't need power, it just needs courage, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell. Have you ever seen someone dismissed just because of their status or uniform? Tell us your story in the comments. Your voice might inspire our next tale of justice and redemption. And here's a little challenge for our sharp-eyed viewers. There's a blink and you'll miss it moment around minute 7:03 when Daniel opens his father's letter that secretly hints at the truth before the reveal. Did you notice what Lila does with the gold watch right then? Watch again carefully, because in this mansion, even time itself was evidence.